All right, so let's talk about the modern playbook for crowdfunding success. You've got this amazing idea, right? Well, getting it funded on a platform like Kickstarter, it's both easier and harder than it's ever been. Seriously, the strategies that were killer just a few years back, they're totally outdated now. So, let's dive into the roadmap that's actually working today, in 2026.
And this is the question, isn't it? It's what every single inventor and creator eventually asks themselves. You've poured your heart and soul into making something incredible, but just, throwing it up on a crowdfunding site and crossing your fingers, that is a surefire recipe for failure. The real challenge, and honestly, the real work, is just getting started.
And look, the stakes are incredibly high. Without a really disciplined, modern marketing strategy, your chances of success just plummet to a measly 15%. That's the hard truth of today's crazy competitive crowdfunding world. But don't let that scare you, because there is a clear path to absolutely crush those odds.
So here's our game plan for today. First, we're going to look at the reality of what we're calling the crowdfunding gauntlet. Then we'll get right into the pre-launch blueprint, and trust me, that's where the magic really happens. From there, we'll talk about crafting your core story, mastering what I call the 4 horsemen of traffic, and then navigating the live campaign itself before we pull it all together into your very own modern playbook.
Okay, let's jump right into that second point, the pre-launch blueprint. If there is one single thing we've learned from thousands of successful campaigns, it's this. What you do before your campaign ever sees the light of day is so much more important than what happens during it. A great pre-launch is the difference between hitting your goal in hours versus struggling for weeks.
And this is exactly why it's so critical. Just look at this. Successful campaigns get a massive 60% of their initial funding from their pre-launch audience, and they get it all within the first 48 hours. That early momentum is everything. So the big question is, how do you build an audience like that? Well, here it is. The single most powerful pre-launch tactic right now is the reservation funnel. So instead of just begging for an email address, you ask for a tiny little commitment, a $1 totally refundable deposit. This one simple move transforms a casual looky-loo into an invested VIP. It's someone who's actually raised their hand and shown real intent to buy.
You see, it's a total shift in strategy. The old way was just about hoarding as many emails as you could. The new way, the much, much smarter way, is all about building a smaller, super qualified list of VIPs who have put a tiny bit of skin in the game. It's all about quality, not just quantity.
And the results? They're just staggering. I mean, people who put down that $1 deposit are up to 30 times more likely to actually back your project than someone who just gives you their email. It's a simple but incredibly powerful filter that tells you exactly who your real fans are before you even hit launch.
Okay, so building that VIP list is step 1. But you need a killer story to get them excited enough to join in the first place. So let's use a little case study. We'll use a fictional tech product we're calling The Sentinel to see exactly how you build a story that actually gets people to act.
You have to remember this. Backers are not just pre-ordering a gadget. They are investing in a vision. They want to be part of your story, to help bring your big idea to life. Your core message has to hit them on an emotional level. It has to promise a better future.
And here is exactly how you bake that story into a cinematic 60-second hook. You start with recognition in chaos. Just picture it. Warm, kind of messy lighting, a desk overflowing with receipts, a phone just vibrating off the hook. You want your viewer to see that and immediately think, oh my God, that is me. Then you pivot to tension and the solution. The music shifts, and this sleek matte black device, the Sentinel, glides into a clean, minimalist space. Next up is relief and the magic. Under cool, focused lighting, you see the device just effortlessly scan a receipt, turning all that chaos into clean data, just like that. And finally, you land on belief and the payoff. We see the calm, confident business owner, just smiling, totally in control. That 4-step journey, recognition, tension, relief, belief, that's what gets people hooked in seconds. But look, underneath that great story, you have to have a value proposition that is crystal clear. What is it? It's a device that auto-updates your ledger. Who's it for? Small business owners. And why is it better? Because it stops that 2 to 5% of financial leakage you get from doing things by hand. If you can't answer those 3 questions in a heartbeat, your message just isn't sharp enough. And clarity is what sells.
Okay, let's switch gears and talk about traffic. Once you've got your VIP list and your story is locked in, you need to actually drive people to your campaign page.
And the best way to think about this is a framework I love to call the 4 horsemen of traffic. Each one has a very distinct and very vital role to play.
First up, you have your pre-launch list. We call that one the leader, because it provides that initial surge that is so critical. Second is online advertising, the fighter, which is there to sustain traffic all the way through. Third is PR and influencers, the wave, which brings these awesome bursts of high credibility traffic. And finally, you've got the platform's own algorithm, the follower. We call it that because it only kicks in to help if the other 3 have already done their jobs.
Now, when it comes to advertising, the data is it's super clear. Meta platforms, so Facebook and Instagram, they still deliver the best return on ad spend, hands down. Successful campaigns are shooting for a ROAS of at least 3.5x. That means for every single dollar you spend, you're getting at least $3.50 back in pledges. Right now, TikTok and YouTube, they just don't really compare for crowdfunding.
And for your PR strategy, you gotta know the game has totally changed. Forget about mass emailing big shot publications. The modern play is to focus on micro-influencers, creators with smaller but hyper-engaged audiences. A whopping 92% of consumers trust their recommendations way more than traditional ads. This is where you find that authentic, high-converting traffic.
All right, so your campaign is live. The initial surge from your VIPs is over, and now you're staring down the next 30 days. This is where so many campaigns just stall out. The key, the absolute key, is to maintain your momentum by actively managing your campaign in real time.
A typical campaign follows this exact pattern. You get this huge initial surge in the first 48 hours. Then, you hit this long, slow period that people call the Valley of Death. And then finally, you get a closing frenzy in the last 48 hours when all the urgency kicks in. Your job is to make that valley as shallow as humanly possible. How do you do that? With data.
Think of this as your mid-campaign toolkit. You can't just set it and forget it. You have to adapt. If you see your conversion rate is super low, maybe your main video is the problem. If your ad costs are through the roof, it's time to pause those ads and try some new creatives, fast. And if funding just stalls completely, launching a brand new, limited-time reward can create that fresh spike of urgency you need.
Whew! We have covered a ton of ground, from what to do before you launch to how to manage things when you're live. So now let's boil all of this down into a final, actionable playbook for modern crowdfunding success. These are the things you absolutely have to get right.
First, pre-launch is everything. Use that $1 reservation funnel to build a qualified list of VIPs. Second, your story is your most valuable asset. Nail that value proposition and build a narrative that truly connects with people. Third, you have to master the 4 horsemen to drive a balanced, strategic mix of traffic. And finally, number 4, adapt or die. A live campaign is a living, breathing thing. You have to use the data to steer the ship.
At the end of the day, a successful campaigning isn't just about a cool product. It's about a community that believes in a story and a vision. The tools and the strategies we've talked about, they're all right here. The only question left is, are you ready to tell your story to the world? Thanks for watching.